What's going on, guys? This is the 5 Yard Pass podcast with me, Suddy, and this is Shyam, and we'll be previewing the weekend's action. Big games this weekend: Chelsea, Tottenham, United, Southampton, Everton, Leeds. Couple of Liverpool take on Brighton down at Brighton. Man City playing Burnley, and a few more games which are very interesting. But first, I know we're a small channel, but I think it's only right to pay homage to the original, the OG of football, in my opinion, our opinion, I think, Shyam. We wanted to say a few things on Maradona and put it on the record, if you will. So, Shyam, do you want to start? I think you've seen him play, at least towards the end of his career. You saw him play a lot. I never did, so I think you should start. And what did he mean to you, man?
Yeah, I mean, Maradona, funnily enough, has had, like, even just in the naming of our channel, has had a big influence. We, both of us, lean on our uncle in terms of one of our football inspirations, and it's a bit hard with Maradona. Actually, it's not so much what to say; it's what not to say, because we could talk here for an hour and a half about Maradona easily. Yeah. So we'll try and keep it a bit short. But to me, he was the ultimate street footballer. You know, the way that he grew up, you know, in the slums of Buenos Aires, he always kept that style with him. You know, he was the guy that you'd pick first in any sort of street game, even when he was much older, you know. With our uncle played football with a bunch of guys that it was also a pass and move type football. That's why we call our channel 5 Yard Pass. And those guys, they grew up in the 80s. They were playing, you know, semi-pro football, inspired by Maradona. And my uncle, even he kind of played as a striker, but his coach encouraged him, because he's a right footer. His coach actually encouraged him to learn how to shoot with his left foot, just because, you know, you're a striker, one chance in the game falls on your left foot. So you need to learn how to shoot with your left. And he started that, but he was so inspired by Maradona, he became a left-footed footballer. So if you watch him play, right, he's predominantly left-footed, but it was because of Diego Maradona and the way that he moves and jinks. He's sort of built like Maradona, sort of big in the shoulders and in the hips, and moves in a similar way. So indirectly, you know, 40 years on, you got two guys with a YouTube channel that was indirectly inspired by Maradona. There was one story I read that I wanted to share. It was the 98 World Cup final, and Pele was getting interviewed by all the press, and suddenly the press all got excited, and most of them ran off down the hall. So Pele turns to one of his holders and goes, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Oh, Maradona's just arrived." And he's like, "Oh." It's just designed for the fact that they're all going to run after Maradona. This is Pele. You know, when I was growing up, the two guys who were seen as the greatest footballers of all time were Maradona and Pele. And then they came out with that FIFA survey around 2000 where they wanted, you know, everybody to vote for the greatest footballer of all time. They thought Pele would win FIFA, but, you know, the anti-establishment figure of Maradona was the guy that everybody voted for. That was how big he was, and he was a man of the people. He wasn't a footballer. He played one season with Barcelona, but he was like his Buenos Aires upbringing. It suited him to go to a club at Napoli, which was, you know, bottom of the league, and he helped build them up to win the league twice. You know, it's not too dissimilar to kind of what, you know, like a Brian Clough or what Bielsa's trying to do with Leeds now. It's a very similar story, except that he was doing it as a player. Incredible inspiration to so many people. And I remember watching him. If you watch the footage, I was watching sort of a year. I mean, I watch from time to time, but I remember watching a year ago him playing against Bayern Munich in the Champions League. And I know this is a big call, but if you took the best of Ronaldo, you know, that aggressiveness, that alpha maleness, the power and the pride that Ronaldo plays with, and the guile and the stealth that Messi plays with, and you put those two things together, that's Maradona, you know? His stats won't measure up to those two, because he played in a different era where no one read 27,000 stats off every day.
Don't talk about stats. I have stats. No, I have, my thing is about stats.
I'm just saying stats won't tell the full story of how good he is. That's all I was going to say about the stats.
Yeah. My thing's exactly about that.
I don't want to take up too much time, because I know you want to say stuff as well.
Mine takes 2 minutes. It's a tweet I saw. So firstly, I won't give too much away, but there are variations of his name that have been my password for various emails and Facebook and Instagram since I was like 10 years old. He was an obsession for me. He still is an obsession for me. I think his. Do you know when he warms up, he does that little jiggle. I still do that when I warm up because it's just something I've seen when I was 10, 11 years old. When I started playing games, 11 aside, I still jiggle before I warm up. I kind of loosen up. It probably does nothing, but it's me getting into the Maradona mode, even though I'll never be even close to his status. But I just want to read one thing and then we can stop. So I saw this tweet and I took a screenshot. I thought this was perfect for the start of the podcast. Haven't seen a single stat about Maradona yet. No goal tally or list of trophies. Just clips of him enjoying himself. I'm too young to have watched him live, but that says it all for me. Played the game the way it should be played. And that's it, man. I talked to my housemates who are a lot younger than me, and they kind of like, oh, he won this, he won that. Everyone knows that World Cup picture. But I'm like, well, he won the Serie A. He bought a couple of cups of the Copa del Rey, but he brought joy to an Argentina that needed joy in the same way the Beatles brought joy to Liverpool in a post-industrialist time. He was a god in the time when there were no gods in Argentina. So yeah, that's my impression of him.
I'll just say one more thing because you've just reminded me. There's two theories of football. One theory is that you try and score more goals than the other team, and whatever you do to score a goal, then you win the game. And the other theory of football is it's about the ball and the foot. That's it. And anyone who has that school of thought that it's about the relationship between the ball and the foot, those people will all say Maradona was the greatest.
Very hard to do. All right. On that note, what a guy. Rest in peace. And I think everyone will try and honor him as best as they can the next few weeks. Yeah. Anyway, we'll get to the games. Everything seems so irrelevant now. We talk about these Premier League games.
Yeah. So now to the top of the table clash between Chelsea and Tottenham.
Yeah. All right. So Chelsea take on Tottenham this week. The master against the apprentice. There's a few of those for Mourinho around the place. He has a few footballing children, if you will. Grandchildren in Arteta, you could say. I think Chelsea are going. If you don't mind, I'll start on this one. A bit unusual, but I just feel Chelsea going into this game with huge momentum, huge confidence. The same as Tottenham. It's honestly very hard for me to see who's going to win, but I think the Son and Kane combination are just too good for anyone at the minute. The momentum is just too much in their favor against potentially a Chelsea side that can't handle what I think is the most informed, you could say, left winger in the world right now. Because I think Son plays kind of off the left, if I'm not wrong, or at least as a kind of off Harry Kane.
He's kind of an inverted, like a bit like Rashford for United, a bit like Mane.
Yeah,
that sort of play.
I think there's just no one who matches him at the moment. Against Thiago Silva, let's see who Chelsea played last 2 games ago against Newcastle. Thiago Silva and
you kind of got Reece James at right back. You've got Zuma and Silva and
I almost think it doesn't matter at the minute. Anyway, what do you think?
Yeah, it's I tend to agree with you. I mean, Chelsea, as much as I think Mendy's been a big purchase for them. It's kind of like when Michael Carrick moved to United, like the team had all these pieces and they just needed someone to just calm it all down. And Michael Carrick was that player. And I think Mendy's kind of been a bit early, but he's kind of been like that to Chelsea. He's just settled things down, which gives them the platform to then launch with that firepower that they've got up front. He's been very good for them, even if it's mentally, not so much physically, but they feel that they can trust their keeper again and it gives the team a bit of strength. There's no obvious matchup. There's no obvious matchup to Son and Kane, really. You'd think Kante will get involved quite a bit if Harry Kane's going to be dropping deep off the front players. I've actually, you talk about sort of player of the round, I was actually going to pick, because if Chelsea are going to get a result here, I think Ziyech's the player that I'm going to just put a bit of the spotlight on this week. If Chelsea are going to get a result, I don't think there's Tottenham kind of, apart from that two, Tottenham kind of lack a bit of creativity, but Chelsea have got that in Ziyech. So I think if they're going to get a result, it's that X factor that he brings, because he's that type of player. I think is going to be the difference.
And Chelsea is something which I think they have the best depth in the league at the minute. I was just looking at the Champions League of the week. They played Rennes. I won't go through the lineup because the lineup was a mix of first and, let's say, second-rate players. But on the bench, they had Rudiger, Alonso, Christensen, Kante, Tomori, Giroud, Ziyech, James, Kai Havertz, and Emerson. That's their bench. Like, what's their starting lineup? I mean,
they've got massive quality up front in terms of depth.
Sham
Even
everywhere, man.
defense like Azpilicueta like doesn't get a game.
That's what he started against Rennes because he knew he wasn't going to play in the weekend.
Yeah, he's a good player, Azpilicueta.
Yeah.
Play anywhere across
That's
the floor and just can't get a spot at the moment.
best right back in the. I put him in my right back of like the 2000s kind of. I think he's been that guy. You know, one of the best fullbacks.
I think Carragher and Neville did their team of the 2010s, and I think they both put him at left back in that team.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So speaking about, I'll just quickly go through the form, like a form kind of guide. But Chelsea in the last few games, they beat Rennes, they beat Newcastle, they beat Sheffield, they beat Rennes before that, they beat Burnley. Like we know they're on an absolute tear. In terms of Spurs, they won just yesterday 4-0. Now don't forget, Sham, they got some depth as well. Like they played a very second-rate lineup as well.
Anyway,
except for maybe Ndombele. But besides that, complete second string team. Mourinho's got the groove, man. So they beat City, they beat West Brom, they beat Ludogorets before that, Brighton. Extending back to 29th of October, they've won all their games, the last 5 games in all competitions. Where do you see this going? And what's your prediction? Oh, before that, so you wanted to say something? Sorry, we lagged there.
No, I was just going to say, I think with Tottenham, I think their defense and attack is in a good place, and I think Bale obviously will come along as the season goes along. They do like a bit of creativity in midfield. It's a very sort of strong, stable midfield, but it hasn't really got that sort of forward thrust. And you don't necessarily need that. Liverpool don't really have, apart from Keita and perhaps Wijnaldum, they don't really have a lot of forward thrust from that midfield three. So you don't necessarily need it. But that's probably the one area I think Tottenham could potentially look to improve. But with the firepower they got up front, you're really just trying to create a platform for them, aren't you? So.
Well, okay. We've both likened this team to Mourinho's first Chelsea. Where did you see the creative outlets in that Chelsea? Just as a kind of devil's advocate, like this is
the very first Chelsea team he had, as in like his first season, they had Lampard. He's not a creative player. Makelele was win the ball, pass it type. Essendon was high energy, win the ball. Cover the grass. Lampard was Lampard was, I won't say creative, but he was creating straight lines from the center midfield. They did have Duff and Robben though, in the wide areas. Arjen Robben and Davian Duff, who were sort of wingers playing in that front three, and then Joe Cole. Yeah. So Mourinho tends to put his creativity in wide areas. That's kind of the way that he goes about it. But that was like pre-Didier Drogba. Drogba, I think, only came in the second season.
He came in 2005, yeah.
They only had Hernan Crespo. but yeah.
Out there in the world, there are some players who have Premier League medals from that 3 years that Chelsea won, those 2 years. They will never fucking remember. Matej Kezman.
Like who? That's a trick question, by the way. Who?
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So, sorry, I just kind of zoned out there, but for a score, I was just thinking about Crespo. I actually reckon it's going to be 2-0 Spurs. 2-1. I'll say 2-1 Spurs.
2-1, yeah. I'm happy to say 1-1. I'm just not sure if I tend to think that the two teams cancel each other out enough that it would take a moment of magic to get that result. And I do think Tottenham are more likely to get it. So I know this is funny, but I'm sort of halfway between a 1-1 and a 2-1 to Tottenham. It depends on whether there's a magic or like an error from an individual error from a player. It's going to be one of those games where, you don't necessarily read it from the balance of play that it's going to be, I think, one team dominating the other. The game's at Stamford Bridge for whatever that's worth. But yeah, if you have to push me, I'm going to go 1-1.
I was going to say, if you say between 1-1 and 2-1, I'll give you an Asia handicap, Sean. +1. Plus 1.5.
Half a goal, yeah.
Yeah, just one last thing. All the big games this year with Chelsea, just wanted to say they've lost to Arsenal in the FA. Oh, that was the end of the FA Cup, sorry. They've lost to Liverpool. They lost to Tottenham on penalties. They've drawn to Sevilla, drawn to United. Kind of those are the bigger games they've played this season. Yeah. So I think the stats say that they could lose. However, the momentum is just fantastic for Chelsea at the minute. So we're harping on too much about them. I think
it is a game where it is like for Tottenham, that win against City was a chance for them to show what they were worth. and they did it.
Yeah.
This is Chelsea's turn against Tottenham to show what they're worth. It's definitely a game of that significance.
Yeah, and so Tottenham winning keeps them on top of the league. Chelsea win potentially could be on top for a few hours whenever the game is actually. Depending on results, they could end the weekend on top.
I think it's a Sunday game because if Tottenham played UEFA Cup, it'd be a Sunday game.
Yeah, it is. Yep. Liverpool play quite early on, so results go their way. Either of them could be on top at the end of the weekend. Yeah. So the next game we'll just run through United Southampton, which is a tough game for both. It is now a tough game, United Southampton. Yeah. So United won on the midweek. I thought it was a very, very good win. They got to get Bruno off early, Rashford off early. It was 4-1 against a team they couldn't beat in Istanbul. Well, I mean, it's very hard to kind of talk about United because you just never know who's going to turn up.
Yeah.
This weekend at Southampton, at St. Mary's. What do you think? Oh, we can talk about Southampton first if you want.
Yeah, Southampton are on the rise. That COVID break did wonders for them. Just getting a bit better every week. They beat City last season. Their pressing will trouble United. United last time they played didn't really break the press very well, and there was a lot of talk after the game about United not bringing on Igalo and playing that sort of 9 and just thumping the ball at his chest to bring down. It'll be interesting to see if United choose to use Cavani in that type of way. He's not a traditional sort of target man, but of the forwards that they've got, he's sort of the biggest and strongest and could handle that sort of game. United could struggle against that Southampton press. They've got a lot of quick players up front. They know how to transition very well as well. When United played them at the end of last season, Southampton never gave up. They just pushed and got that last-minute equaliser, which was quite a demoralising result for United. Yeah. I remember it at Old Trafford as well. Both sides would take a draw but be happy to win this game, I think. And by the way, where in the world is Paul Pogba? I don't want to focus on it too much, but I haven't seen.
Oh Jesus! Before I'll just say what I think about the game first. So I tend to agree with you. I mean it's a bit unfair to talk anything bad about Igalo, but he's just not up to scratch as to what Cavani can bring. I think it's quite obvious.
The reason I made the comment about Cavani, so I just will say it so you can. No. I don't know in terms of like he seems to me to be a technical striker, can thread a through ball from the run on. I haven't seen him play as that target man, so that's why I made. Yeah,
I think common sense would kind of dictate as you're kind of going by gut feeling. I think he can play that position. He's like 6'2", 6'3". He's a beautiful man. He can even control his jawline if he wanted to.
Beautiful man.
But yeah, he does. I liked what I saw against Istanbul. He's deathly hardworking, man. It's weird. Like he's like a Tevez kind of character, a bit slower because he's 33, but he's a Tevez character, which is what you want. And he seems like he wants to be there. I think at the minute with Bruno, in my opinion, being the top 3 midfielders in his role in the world, any striker wants to play as long as they can in terms of the minutes wise every game with Bruno because the goal might come.
I like that he took the 7 shirt. There's a mystique about that, from George Best's time. Yeah. That he was just, he didn't have to. It was a bit, he took the 7. Okay. He means business, I like that.
Bruno's so good at assisting. They assisted Rashford for that penalty on the weekend, gave him the ball, let him score on Tuesday.
No, give it a
I was just gonna say, okay, so just to finish off with this, it was nice to see Walcott score his goal. I tell you, Southampton are not to be sniffed at. They do concede a lot, 17 goals, 13 against. And I'll just quickly go through their form. We know what United form is, we both do. A draw to Wolves, like we said. They beat Newcastle. They beat Villa 4-3. Lost to Everton. Chelsea draw.
Up against Villa as well. They fell asleep. They were 4-0 up. Sorry.
Oh yeah, they were. No. You're right. They were. That's a good point actually. So they do tend to concede. The Chelsea game would be another one 3-3. So before we get to predictions, Paul Pogba. I mean, they said he got sick, and then he got injured, and he's not recovering well. I'm at a stage, and I've said this before, he's a fucking outstanding player, but he's just not right for United anymore. It's got to a point where, I think that the new cool kid in school has come in Bruno, and the team has moved on. Emotionally has moved on from Pogba. his so-called political allies in that team, the Jesse Lingards, Lukaku, Alexis Sanchez, they've all moved on, or they're just irrelevant in the team anymore.
Yeah.
You could even put Luke Shaw in that category of being a Paul Pogba ally. And it's like, they're just so irrelevant in the team anymore, you know?
I almost felt a bit.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense at all? Like, that's what I've seen.
Yeah. I think the transition of Van der Beek, everyone was going, oh, where's Donny's game time? And it's almost as now Donny's come in. He played really well against Besiktas in the Champions League. He moves the ball forward. He finds spaces really well. And I think that's kind of the final nail in the coffin. If Donny's playing with Bruno, then Paul ain't getting the game.
And for anyone who says Ollie's a PE teacher, I think this move of him just going, Paul doesn't play, will be one. If he goes on to win, let's say in the next 5 years, goes on to win a Premier League, couple of FA Cups, and potentially Europa League, this will be one of his master strokes to push the team on to win trophies, because he's just not, he's the perfect player in the wrong time of United's history. If he was here in that 2008 team, or in the 99 team, or even that 04, that kind of early 2000s with Roy Keane, who actually I don't even know, but yeah, perfect. He was slot in, perfect. But he needs a lot of pieces to work for him. Bruno, Van de Beek, Rashford, they will make things work when things aren't working, a lot more than Pogba will. He's had a few good performances.
He goes with the flow of the game too much, as opposed to taking it and creating a flow. That's
absolutely.
That's a mindset thing.
And
when the catches him, he's incredible, but it doesn't catch him week in, week out, which is what you see with a De Bruyne or a Gerrard. And those are the players that, rightfully or wrongly, he'll be compared to.
Yeah, and with and the last thing of Pogba for me is that the fact that you can remember his best performances, and that those are his only best performances. You just go like, with Gerrard, you go like, yeah, Istanbul, West Ham. With Roy Keane, you think of Juventus, but you go like, yeah, but he was still the best player in the world. When Roy Keane, in that moment in time, Pogba, there was Man City, there was Arsenal. I can't remember many other games where he's played. You've gone like, yeah, you're anything close to that 90, 100 million. So, guy needs to move on, and that's the end of it for me.
Yeah, I think the fact that we're talking about it, obviously, but not a lot of people making noise about it. That in itself indicates that it's the right move.
Yeah, true. Like you're talking about, generally speaking, that the whole Pogba fanfare has kind of died down. I think everyone's kind of accepted
the fact United are actually, they've had some big downs this season, but generally they actually seem fairly up and about, and up and about well enough that murmur's gone down. If United were not playing him and not winning as much, there would be a lot more questions asked.
So a win for Southampton could, amazingly, if results go their way, put them on the top of the league. A win will put them on 20 points. Nothing could change, really. I don't think nothing much will change. Well, yeah, nothing could change in the top 5. A win for United could push them into 6th, still with a game in hand over the weekend. So you are right. United have the general upward trajectory. I think that 6-1 win, 6-1 loss, against Spurs, still kind of looms a bit for them. So I was just looking at the fixtures with a friend of mine the other day. So Southampton, PSG, West Ham, Leipzig, City, Sheffield. It's a tough kind of fixture list, but if they go and get a point at PSG, just that pressure, you just feel that pressure valve release a little bit, which is very doable in my opinion. PSG have not been well in Europe this year. Very few
people forget that they're playing at home.
Yeah. So we'll wait and see. As for Southampton, as you said, they've been playing really well. Walcott getting that goal as a unit. They've done very well since COVID. So what do you think the score is going to be, Shyam?
Yeah, I think this game will go a long way to dictating the type of season that these teams will have. If United can get the win, they'll start thinking about chasing European spots. But if they can't, you'd probably start thinking about having a good season, and it's probably the same applies to Southampton as well. There's a big, from about where United are to about where Southampton are, which I think is roughly sort of 10th, 11th and 6th. There's not very much there between the teams in terms of points. I'm going to go with a draw. I don't see either side winning this. Probably a bit like Tottenham. It'll come down to an individual mistake if there is one.
I disagree with you. I think it's going to be a 3-1 United, and I'll say how. I think it's going to be 1-1 for a long time. And United have this. United is a very fit team at the minute. I think Ollie's done that quite well because you see even at the 90, 95th, 97th minute, yeah. I just imagine Ollie doing those things from Miracle, the movie Miracle with Kurt Russell again.
The wolf feeds the
Again.
gentleman.
Yeah. Again, who do you play for? Anyway, I think 3-1. Yeah, two late goals for United on a kind of counter attack. Usual way they score those very late goals. They did one against
playing away suits United.
Yeah.
I mean, like Newcastle, they did it against Everton. They did it against Brighton. They did it, and Ollie would know from playing in Fergie teams about the value of that, playing at a high tempo and breaking teams down and getting those goals at the end. I just think Southampton a little bit better, but they haven't had European football. I'm going to stick with the draw, but I would not be surprised in the slightest if United nick 1 or 2 goals late.
Okay. Can we talk about Liverpool? It's my favorite topic every week. It's happened. Okay, so we want to, you wanted to talk about, I think it's a good point to bring up. So they lost 2-0 yesterday against Atalanta. Goals from Ilicic, and I think Ilicic got 2. Right to say that?
I'm actually not sure. I saw
the highlights. Got the other goal. Liverpool playing Brighton away. They got, in my opinion, dominated by Atalanta. Liverpool didn't have a shot on target. They played a team you're probably going to see something similar to on the weekend. Salah, Origi, Mane up top. Wijnaldum, Milner in the midfield with Curtis Jones. The back four perhaps might rotate out.
Wait, did Salah play?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, he started. Okay.
He started, yeah. And like Jota came on, Robertson came on, Minamino, Fabinho all came on. They couldn't change the game.
I think there was only 4 players though. They had who was it? Sorry, there's only 4 first choice players of that 11 that you think about when you think of that team that won the league.
I agree that I couldn't. Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. I go Salah, Mane, Wijnaldum, Alisson. Would that be the 4 you're thinking of?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. They are depleted. They did really well last week. I don't see them losing to Brighton, but how do you think they could lose to Brighton?
They would have to be, if they play at that level against Atalanta, they're in a lot of trouble. They were just quite tepid. They didn't take the game on, and they didn't show that toughness that you associate with this team. There is talk about Thiago and Henderson potentially being available. Would you bring 2 players in that are a bit iffy injury-wise? It's an interesting question. You'd think Henderson, if he could play, would start. Thiago might be an option off the bench. Would that be enough to turn things around? I just think that Brighton have been good at finding weaknesses in other teams. The question's been more about other teams finding weaknesses in them. So I do think that as well. I don't see Liverpool losing this game. The question is, can they win the game? That is this performance against Atalanta, because we've talked for weeks about them playing some really good teams and getting some good wins with a lot of people out. Sometimes you're kind of waiting for either the bubble to burst, or you're waiting to see how a team reacts to a result like they did against Atalanta. That was not a game that they needed to win in the context of that group, because they did incredibly well.
They're still top. They're still top, yeah.
Yeah, they're still top. It makes the other games more important, and perhaps Jurgen Klopp would have rather having 2 dead rubbers. Because I think if they won that game, they could have just played the reserves in the last 2 games. But this is quite an important game for them to show that was a blip, because if they don't get the win here again, there starts to be more questions about the quality of these guys. And individually, they're good players. I mean, Curtis Jones is actually very good. Origi,
I agree.
There's questions over whether... And Jota's clearly passed him in the pecking order. So I think Jota will come in for... and I think that... Who did they rest? There was... Jota came on and a couple more came on.
Fabinho, Jota, Minamino, Robertson.
Yeah, so Robertson will play and Jota will play. I don't see the other 2 playing. So that adds a bit to them. Origi seems to be more of a super sub, frankly. Just probably a bit like a Gallo, like a good player, but not probably at the standard of the team that he's playing at to get that regular game time. So the question for them, Liverpool, again, I don't see them losing the game. Can they find something to him? Because for me, last season was not so much about the individual brilliance. They had that individual brilliance in that season where they lost to City by a point. This last season they had was defined by that toughness and that resilience, which is what is being questioned. Not the ability of the players. It's the ability to back up and back up and back up.
Yeah.
Have these players got what it takes? Because it's half the team is different from that team. So have the other half that come in got what it takes? That's the question.
Liverpool, for me, don't necessarily have a good depth. I think they've made a few buys that just have not. Yeah, I don't blame anyone because I think Liverpool in the last 10 years have done spectacular. It's 5 years especially. It's a spectacular transfer business. Their depth is questionable, and I don't mean just from last game. I mean like I'm just trying to get this up and see who their depth is.
They're not the first team to win a lot of trophies without depth. Barcelona teams, the Guardiola, Luis Enrique teams did not have a lot of depth. But that's fine when you haven't got a lot of injuries. So you don't necessarily need a lot of depth. All successful football teams, if you look at the last 20 years with this sort of squad mentality, you need a clear first 11, you need a clear identity of football, and you need a depth quality over quantity. Otherwise, if you've got quantity over quality, you end up with United with a whole bunch of guys that are sort of good enough to play for United, but
you don't want,
like Phil Jones. Yeah.
For me, the first time I remember conceptualizing that when I was like 10 or 11 years old, when a bit older than that, but Chelsea had Peter Cech and Carlo Cudicini on the bench, and Cudicini for me was one of my heroes growing up. I thought he was an amazing keeper, even though I was a United fan. I always remember thinking that was my concept. You can't have Cudicini and Cech on the bench.
He was
Cech and Cudicini on the bench.
Incredible shot stopper, Cudicini.
Yeah.
Just be like had these rubber arms that could just flap it in and knock it away. Yeah.
And that's the concept you're saying, obviously, where you got to have a good balance of people who are on the bench, who don't mind sitting on the bench and waiting their turn. The Donny van de Beeks, Henderson at some point was like that, sitting on the bench waiting for a chance.
The treble team in '99 is a perfect example. They had Ole Gunnar, they had Nicky Butt, they had Phil Neville. They had good players who were happy to sit on the bench and contribute when they needed to. That depth in quality, like the United team, like when they played the Champions League final, they didn't have Keane and Scholes, and I think there was one other player missing as well. Like they had guys like Jonathan Grenning, who was not a regular at United, who now has the Champions League medal because he was on the bench in that game.
Yeah.
There's one more medal for Roy Keane, actually.
There's actually a great picture of like one of the famous pictures. I think Schmeichel lifting the trophy, and Jonathan Greening is like, what am I doing here? I see Liverpool further cementing their position at the top, or further cementing their top two positions if they don't score enough goals, or if Tottenham score a lot.
So you think Liverpool can get the win here?
I'm just thinking, where's Brighton? Brighton's the most unluckiest team in the world right now. They're
in the bottom five, but they're better than those other bottom five.
We talked about this in the preview video last week. Like just a few results not going their way would push them into kind of that 10 to 9th position.
Yeah.
I'm going 3-1, 3-0, 3-1 Liverpool, I think.
You think they're going
at the minute, Liverpool's next few fixtures as well: Ajax, Midtjylland, Wolves, Fulham. They have space to breathe and to move around, and I think their players are quite well rested.
Of their next 11 games, they've got Tottenham twice. I don't know how that happens, but they got Tottenham twice in the league. They've got United and they got Wolves. So there's about 7 games there in 11 where they can just take a bit of a breath, and that doesn't include the Champions League games, which is Ajax and Midtjylland. Yeah.
Yeah, just on the point, it's a real weird kind of era, but like United play Liverpool twice at the second half of the season between like February and April. It's a weird, like we play them. That's when we play Liverpool.
There's it's funny. I think it's due to the cramp with the
it's absolutely, that's what it is. It's just a funny thought.
They're just starting to get more flexible with that sort of thing. The thing about Liverpool is they've had a lot of hard games. They played a lot of the top teams, and they're still second on the table, and they've had a lot of injuries. So this could just be the catalyst for them to go and win the next 25 games for all we know. The question is there at the moment. Can they do it?
The question is, Shyam, would you rather Spurs or Liverpool win the league?
Would I rather? I would love to see Harry Kane win the league title. And I'd love to see Mourinho just go like this to everybody. I would love that.
I actually would. I was just going to say, if you count the legal points, Tottenham win clearly. If you count the illegal points, they lose. All right, just to finish off here, do you want to talk about the City game? Do you just kind of where City are at the moment? I think it's
I was actually thinking about Everton and Leeds.
Sorry, the Everton game. Excuse me, Everton game. Yeah, no, we did say that before. Yeah. All right. Where do you think this lands up? So just before that, I'll kind of run through the league positions. So Everton in 6th, we all know they had a huge start to the season. They've dropped off a little bit. Leeds in 14th, playing good football, just kind of can't get their momentum going. Everton had a huge game last time out, was it? Yeah, 3-2. But they lost to United 3-1 before that. Where do you see this landing?
Yeah, both teams have had good start.
And Leeds, just one thing, Leeds drawing to Arsenal 0 was a good result for them, I thought. So yeah, where do you see this going?
Yeah, I mean Leeds. I mean they played Liverpool, they played City, they played Arsenal. So they're playing Everton now. So they've had some tough games. They've had a promising start, but they've got to be careful that it doesn't all sort of fizzle into nothing. Both teams have had 3 losses in their last 5 games, and that's acceptable in one spot in a season. But if you keep doing that, you ain't going to go very far. This game, a bit like the other one I was talking about, United and Southampton, I think it's going to shape how they look at the rest of the season. There's individual players there. You look at Bamford at Leeds. You look at Rodriguez at Everton in terms of what they can do. And I guess there's questions about Bielsa as well. That there's a lot of the EPL has evolved into a league that's very. When we were growing up, it was all 4-4-2, put it in the mixer, play direct to the strikers type of thing. The game has gotten very technical, but it's also gotten very tactical in terms of the way that different managers approach it and adjust things. If they know that if you're Ole Gunnar, for example, you're playing City, so you go to that 5-3-2. You play the players, in terms of who are the strikers covering, who is Bruno Fernandes and the whole covering. The game has gotten quite tactical with teams making adjustments to individual oppositions. And I think Leeds, as well as they play in that beautiful 3-1-3-3 system, or 3-3-1-3 system, are they getting a bit caught out with the lack of that flexibility that they've got? It's an incredible trick that they've got, but is it a one-trick pony thing? Has Bielsa got other things that he can do? Is it simply, will he look to change formations, or will you look to play a different guy in the left wing because he offers something different to the current left winger? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Those questions kind of need to be asked about Bielsa, because the worry with Leeds is that is this the best that they can do? As much as it's a romance story, and I'm sure they'll take 14. If you told them at the beginning of the season, you will finish 14th, they would take it. But the feeling is that they're capable of more, because they challenged Liverpool. They played City off the park. They deserve more than a draw against Arsenal, but they haven't got the results to show it. So what are they going to do rather than just being good at what they do? There's a difference between that and getting results. So it's an important game for Leeds. I think it's at Goodison as well, away from home. But I think they need to show a little bit more in terms of that tactical side of the game to just wriggle out results against certain teams. And with Everton, Everton's a little bit opposite, but similar problem in that Ancelotti's not much of a tactical manager. He's a very good man manager, but he's often about, I'll keep the defense strong and the attacking players can all figure it out as they get used to playing with each other,
I think Everton, as of last game, they got their front 3 back. They're six in that V. So Decore, Allen, and then the three on top. So the 5 of them.
Allen's a good player. I never saw much of him. I like him.
Oh, I used to buy him all the time in FIFA. I thought he's the definition of a 5-yard pass. He's the human version of a 5-yard pass. Yeah. I think. I love these. I actually think
Bruno. In that United Everton game, that battle he had with Bruno, that was brilliant.
Yeah. And Allen's very strong and Allen's only about my height. He's not very tall. He's maybe 5'6", 5'7". Yeah. Very fast, very strong.
He's not much taller than He's physically he looks similar to Bruno, who's fairly slight, but he's strong.
I don't think there's much to analyze with this for me. I think Everton are going to play him off the park. I think with all their players back, they seem to have confidence last week against it is Fulham, I know, but they seem to have confidence. It was a great game for them to come back together to play before going on to play Leeds, who's going to be a tough game, but I think I see 2-0, 3-0 kind of game with all the players back and Calvert-Lewin seeming to be up for it again as well.
Yeah.
Shall we?
You were just choose. Who do you think your player of the round?
I was just gonna ask you that before we wrap up.
I went with Ziyech from Chelsea.
You did, yeah.
And to be clear, this is more a player who's the player to keep an eye on. I don't necessarily think he's going to be the best player in the world this round.
So
he's an important player in the round, yeah.
So I'm just gonna go for something a bit different. I think Man City are in big trouble if they don't go win this year. I would never pick a Man City player for my player of the round, but I'd like to see De Bruyne step up this week against Burnley. Just for the sake of
talking about him.
Must.
No one's talking about him, and that's not good when you're the most important player on a team chasing a title.
Yeah, and vice captain, and a huge leader in the team as well. So yeah, I'll go for him. Macaulay Culkin, aka Kevin De Bruyne. That's my play. Yeah, every time he assists. Any closing thoughts there, Shyam? You want to maybe spend 30 seconds with my boy Diego?
Yeah,
anything closing on
Chelsea
Diego?
Tottenham, so I'm really looking forward to that one. Diego Maradona. Football was about expressing yourself. There's tactics, there's technical skill, there's physical skill, but beyond that, it's about expressing yourself as a footballer, expressing yourself as a human being. That's what Diego Maradona taught us.
I want to say one. Go on, sorry, thought you finished there.
I was going to say it's a slightly controversial thing to touch, but that sort of comments about Sepp Blatter when he says female footballers are sexy, they should wear short shorts.
Yeah.
When you move on from technical ability to the ability to express yourself, I guess men watching female footballers, if they're inclined, might find them attractive. A lot of women watch Maradona play. They find him the most attractive footballer because of that pure arrogance and that testosterone that he plays with. A lot of women fancy Maradona, and and it's not to me, it's not a sexual thing, but it's that expression that he has that people find attractive in whatever way that they find attractive.
It's straight up. It's called big dick energy, not literally the physical size of someone. It is. Very few people have it. Very few people have it in abundance. And I wanted to say one thing about Diego Maradona. I actually thought of the story while we were talking about the other games. Apparently Maradona, it's a real quick one, but apparently Maradona, it's a lesser known story. He was actually flown in on a helicopter to spend time with oh Jesus, what's his name? The Narcos guy, the famous drug dealer.
What's his name? Not the
Colombian
drug lord.
What's his? Oh my God, why is his name not coming to me? I've seen Narcos and everything. Pablo Escobar, of course.
Escobar.
So he was flown in on the helicopter to go to this private prison that Escobar built for himself, and apparently Maradona was just like, this is Maradona, the greatest player of all time. Every girl wants to be, with him. And he said he landed there and he said he had never seen so many women in his life. And the way he describes it apparently is like there was just like women everywhere. And then there was a foosball table and a table tennis table, and then there was women again everywhere. I mean, football is so in the grand scheme.
You said this. Wait. You said this was a prison full.
Yeah, so Escobar built a prison as part of his deal.
Full of women.
Yeah. If you watch the show, you'll see how the prison was his idea, so he kind of placate the government. But football is so irrelevant in the grand scheme of life, man. It's expression, it's art, and he kind of showed us what it's like to make football matter so little and life matter so much more. Enjoying yourself and all that. Anyway.
Sorry, one more thing. You just
no, it's fine. No, it's.
I think we live in a world where if someone isn't perfect, they do one thing wrong, we smash down on them, we beat them. That sort of thing. Like Maradona's highs were the highest highs we've ever seen, but he had some big lows. Yeah. And it's important now that he's passed. Let's look at him he was a human being. He was flawed, but he was also an incredible human being at the same time. So who we remember Maradona. The incredibleness of the flaws, that's a reflection of who you are. That's not a reflection of who Maradona is.
I like that. And we'll end on that note. It's a reflection of who you are, not who Maradona is. On that note, guys, we are the 5-Yard Pass. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're a growing channel, and if you like what we're saying, let us know. My name is Suddy. This is Shyam. Keep football simple, and as always,
keep passing, guys. Cheers.